What on earth would motivate this man, Colorado dentist Jim Craig, to fatally poison his wife of 24 years, 43-year-old Angela Craig? Was it greed? Infidelity? Did Angela Craig have life insurance? Did Jim Craig have another woman? Prosecutors say yes, all of the above.
Tonight, a Colorado dentist is behind bars accused of a heinous, complex, and calculated plot to slowly poison his wife to death. Police say 45-year-old James Craig allegedly purchased arsenic and cyanide and secretly dosed his wife Angela in protein shakes. The arrest affidavit showing text messages between he and his wife the week before her death. Angela complaining, "My head feels funny and dizzy," even writing, "I feel drugged."
Angela Craig had 3 separate life insurance policies, and Jim was experiencing major financial difficulties. He filed bankruptcy in 2021 and was on the verge of yet another bankruptcy at the time of Angela's death. This latest threat of bankruptcy, however, did not deter Jim from losing $2,000 while gambling in Las Vegas during a recent trip. A family friend of more than 20 years, a fellow dentist named Ryan Redfern, had recently acquired Jim's dental practice, and Ryan was actively trying to keep the business afloat in spite of Jim Craig's involvement. Angela was 18 years old when she married Jim, and she gave him 6 children during the marriage. Jim Craig admitted to drugging his wife approximately 5 years before her murder. His excuse at the time was that he had intended to commit suicide, and he didn't want Angela to stop him from killing himself. He also didn't want her to find his body. This ridiculous excuse apparently worked, and the couple stayed together for the sake of their family. Jim Craig was having an affair with a Marble Falls, Texas dentist named Karen Kane at the time of Angela's murder. Karen claims that they were only romantically involved for about 3 weeks. She also says that their relationship was never consummated. The secret emails between the two, however, seem far more intimate than Karen Kane is willing to admit.
Do you think that James Craig allegedly poisoned his wife to clear the deck so he could be with you?
There's no way I'm motive. There's been no planning a future together.
When Texas orthodontist Karen Kane met Dr. James Craig at a dental conference last February, she wasn't looking for love. She was in the process of a divorce from her husband of almost 30 years.
We met on a Thursday and then went home on Saturday. So we spent this Thursday evening getting to know each other. And then we texted until 4 a.m. that night. Then the next day we, spent pretty much the day together.
They seemed to have shared values, a strong faith. Their children, their number one priority, and both seemed to be in a similar place. She says he told her he was also deep in the divorce process.
He told me they hadn't been living together. He had an apartment.
After the conference, the two remain in constant contact.
It was just consistent from 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. There was a lot of just feeling so connected.
Karen flew to Denver for a visit with Jim while Angela Craig was in the hospital.
Originally, it was maybe I shouldn't really even come. And he was I could really use the support.
Karen tells me they met for dinner twice.
He at no point seemed stressed or anxious really, I had to drag it out. I'm are you sure you're okay? Because he seemed okay.
But all is not okay. Soon after Angela is pronounced dead, James is arrested on charges of first-degree murder. And investigators are questioning Karen. Her initial disbelief turns to shock when she reads the arrest affidavit.
These are the allegations that within days of meeting you, he starts researching potassium cyanide and is buying these deadly poisons.
Yeah, and it wasn't until the media started reporting on it that I realized the timeline was so tight that it was
Jim Craig had multiple affairs during his 24-year marriage to Angela. She tried to forgive him each and every time. Jim claimed that he was battling a serious addiction to pornography, which began during his teenage years, and he treated it like some terrible sort of mental and physical condition that he needed spiritual help with. According to the affidavit of probable cause in this case, Whenever Angela would work up the nerve to leave her husband, Jim would always convince her to stay. On February 27, 2023, Jim created a secret email account. He only accessed the new Google account from a random computer in exam room 9 at Summerbrook Dental Group, never using his personal or regular business devices. Aside from romantic messages that were exchanged with his mistress, Jim made several highly questionable searches. He then searched chemical suppliers in Aurora, Colorado, and made a $13 purchase on Amazon for arsenic metal 99.9999% crystalline metalloid 10 grams. The package was delivered to his home address at 6795 South Robertsdale Way on March 4, 2023. Angela Craig fell sick for the first time on March 6, 2023, 2 days after Jim received the first batch. She had just returned home from a trip to Utah where she was visiting her sister Toni. Angela's sister told detectives that Angela was not sick at all during their visit. Also on March 6, 2023, Jim ordered a second batch of poison. He purchased 3 oleandrin 1 milligram tablets for $330. Angela passed away before he could get his hands on it, and detectives with the Major Crime Homicide Unit were able to intercept the package before it was delivered, so he actually never received it at all. On March 9, 2023, however, Jim ordered a third batch of poison that he did in fact receive. This time, he purchased Sigma 207-810-25G, which is the technical term for potassium cyanide. The cost of this particular batch was approximately $55. He wanted to pick up the product from Midland Scientific, but it wasn't in stock. The company said they could ship it overnight for Saturday delivery. Jim agreed and had the package sent to his office. Unfortunately for Jim, the package was not delivered until Monday, March 13th, which meant that his staff was present when the package was delivered. Jim informed an office manager that he was expecting a personal package and instructed her to not open it. The package was opened anyhow by a different office manager, and it was repackaged when she realized that she wasn't supposed to open it. Jim had no idea that the package had been opened until after one of the office managers contacted Ryan Redfern, Jim's business partner, and told him about the curious delivery of potassium cyanide. Ryan and his wife Michelle were on their way to visit Angela in the hospital when Ryan received the call. At his earliest opportunity, when Jim had stepped out of the room, Ryan pulled a nurse aside and told her that Angela may have been poisoned. The nurse immediately reported the incident to police. The Department of Human Services spoke with Jim and his children separately. Jim told them Angela was suicidal. He claimed that she had tried to take her own life on several occasions, and he had revived her each time. Jim neither reported the suicide attempts nor suggested that Angela get therapy or treatment of any sort. Jim Craig sent the following message to his business partner, Ryan Redfern, after Angela's murder. Good morning, Ryan. Thank you for taking my patient load today. I want to make an urgent plea to you. If we were ever friends, please do this favor for me. Please don't talk to anyone about what we talked about last night, including any law enforcement officers. You are under no obligation to answer their questions unless you are served a subpoena, and you will do more damage than good to my family by continuing to insert yourself into this. Angela is gone, and I am devastated. There is nothing that can bring her back, and I want desperately to tell you all of the details so that you can better understand what's gone on behind the scenes with her. There is so much that you didn't know that I wish you did. If you knew everything, this would make so much sense to you, but there's no use in telling you right now. You and I have a history of you and the other partners and Jackie all talking about me behind my back and deciding when you think is best, and then you're always the fall guy that has to pull the trigger or tell me what you've all decided about me. In fact, yesterday you didn't even come to me. I had to seek you out. You have never given me the advantage of talking with me first. You just decide and then act and hope I'll pick up the pieces later. This is a pattern in our business dealings and now has become a factor in our personal dealings. Let me paint a picture for you of what this has done. Yesterday I had to tell my kids their mom was not going to wake up and that they were there to say their final goodbyes. That was at 6:45 p.m. The hospital said we could bring the kids up to say goodbye at that time, but because of the investigation you opened by your incomplete information, the hospital made those poor, grieving, hysterical kids wait until after 10 o'clock to see their mom. After an hour or so of saying goodbye to her, we went home just before midnight, only to have our house sealed against our entry by the police. Instead of getting to go home and find comfort, they were met with flashing lights and cold, unfeeling cops, and the kids, scared and confused, had to go sleep at the home of a ward member. Family is starting to come in town today, and I have to tell them they can't come to my house and try to explain why. I have to hire a homicide attorney to make sure I don't end up being painted in the light that you know some hungry DA is anxious to paint me in, because I am most likely going to be charged, even though that is absolutely not what happened. Ryan, I understand why you did what you did. I do. I get it. But if you had come to me personally, man to man, instead of talking to everyone else about what you thought you knew, I might have let you in on some details that would have made you less likely to cause this horrible storm. Man, Ryan, if you had only put me higher on your list of priorities instead of putting everyone else's opinions and gossip ahead of me. For that, I am very, very mad at you. I have talked to you about this multiple times, but you don't seem to care, and now what you thought was responsible has become reckless and so destructive. And so I'm asking, if there was ever any love in your heart for me, please don't make this any worse by talking to any officers or anyone else about this unless you are legally forced to. And whoever else on the team you think is going to be questioned, I would ask that you privately ask them to honor this request too. Also, please do not respond to this text message until I text you again. Jim Craig told Angela's sister that he would not allow hospital staff to perform an autopsy. He said that he felt if they couldn't figure out what was wrong with her when she was alive, then he wouldn't let them poke her even more now that she was dead. An autopsy was performed after his arrest anyhow. The last few weeks of Angela Craig's life were absolutely miserable. Death by poison is an incredibly painful way to leave this world. Angela suffered many symptoms. Dizziness, muscle stiffness, a general weakness. She was nauseous. She was vomiting. She had vision problems, eye discharge, extreme headaches, high and low blood pressure, a loss of appetite, and she definitely had an altered mental state. Angela had difficulty breathing and eventually suffered a seizure. She was then intubated and had a heart attack before going brain dead, at which point her husband made the decision to pull the plug while pretending to care about her death. Angela Craig died on March 18th. Jim Craig was booked into the Arapahoe County Detention Center the following day around 9 a.m. on March 19th, 2023. Since his arrest, Jim Craig has been charged with 2 additional crimes. On top of first-degree premeditated murder after deliberation, he has also been accused of attempting to persuade one of his daughters to tamper with physical evidence in order to facilitate a crime. And he's been accused of attempting to persuade a fellow inmate to plant false evidence. Jim offered this inmate free dental work or money toward his bond if the inmate was willing to go to Jim's house and plant letters that were allegedly written by Angela inside Jim's garage and vehicle. The letters were actually written by Jim from jail, but they were meant to corroborate Jim's claims that Angela was suicidal before her death. Jim Craig maintains that Angela must have poisoned herself, and he complains that any evidence against him is merely circumstantial. A jury trial was originally scheduled to begin in April 2024, but it was pushed back to August after an expert witness for the defense suffered a stroke. Jim has since waived his right to a speedy trial, and the August 2024 trial date has been vacated. We will continue to follow this case and update you as new details become available.